Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I'm excited for my conversation today with Sam Varner. She is the founder of She Collective and is on a mission to show business owners just how they can live full and robust lives while building massively profitable businesses. She has a special formula we're going to learn about today called Crush. She takes her 15 plus years of experience in PR, sales, and business development and teaches driven entrepreneurs how to create wealth through business ownership. Welcome to the show today, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. And I'm excited to share your story and this Crush formula that you have. I also want to point out this phrase that you use: without profit, business is just an expensive hobby. Amen to that, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs in my business, and lots of folks have lots of ideas. But that is one of the first things that I sometimes will say to folks is this a business or is it a hobby? And I like that expensive hobby because for some people, it is an expensive hobby.
Yeah, it can really be. And it's one of those things that if people aren't focused on that, they don't necessarily notice how expensive it is getting.
Exactly. Well, we'll get into all of that. But I want to share your story, your journey, your path. I know you're originally from Alberta, Canada. Is that right?
It is. Yep.
Awesome.
Grew up in the mountains.
Yeah, I love it. And you went to school in Calgary, college in Calgary?
I did. Yep.
Okay. What did you study?
I studied communications. So I went to University of Calgary to just get some education. And I just went into communications, which was a very broad kind of Bachelor of Arts degree in overall communication.
Awesome. And I see you got a master's degree. You honed in a little more on your craft.
I did. I went to Humber College and did a postgrad in public relations, which was fantastic because it became kind of the practical education that you don't necessarily get with the theory at university. So it was now here's how you do it, which was fantastic.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. So let's get into your career path. You did a stint in public relations for a couple of years. Talk about your first job out of school.
It was a great job. It was a fantastic opportunity to get in with an agency. It was kind of the ideal coming out of a program where there was so much talk about agency work. And as a young 20s person at that point, being part of an agency was amazing because you got to see so many different clients and you got to see the inner workings of a business that you don't necessarily get to see if you're just in that position where you are doing, administration or just marketing for one specific company. This way I got to peek at all the different pieces of the agency and then of the clients' businesses themselves.
I also shared that with you. I worked for an agency for a few years when I lived in Los Angeles, and I would agree. It was a really great way to understand marketing and understand just a wide variety of client needs. I really enjoyed that before I went in-house for a company, but the agency life is fun and fast.
It is fun and fast. I think in most circumstances, it's a young person's game.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then you did a bit of a pivot. You worked on strategic tax and business solutions in estate planning. What brought on that pivot?
To be honest, it was the agency collapsing. So, I was working at the agency and they completely changed all of the pretty much everybody left, and they got in new management and new people. And it just wasn't the same dynamic. It wasn't the same environment. So many of us can probably sympathize with that, or at least recognize it, where you change a lot of things and all of a sudden the environment doesn't feel the same. So I tripped into the financial job and found the interaction with clients to be as satisfying. And it was a new skill set to learn when it came to the financial planning and estate planning side of business ownership.
Awesome. And then insurance, you have literally covered every industry. It's so well-rounded as far as, being someone that now advises businesses. You've really done every aspect of business building.
Yeah, it was, that was kind of, again, just a little shift, a little pivot, and getting to do the insurance, I think, was such a fantastic experience, because it's talking about something. At that point, I was talking originally with people and just their personal insurance needs, and then talking about business insurance needs and key man insurance and all the things that we need to be aware of as business owners. And if you can thrive in that environment, talking about life insurance, you could pretty much thrive anywhere, because people don't want to talk to you about that stuff, right? Nobody wants to think about it. So being able to have hard conversations with clients and really pull out the reasons they want to be doing things made me very good at selling and at understanding the sales mindset, but also just understanding, I think, human nature and how to talk to people in a way that is non-confrontational and allows for them to be okay with being really uncomfortable and talking about things anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like you spent some time with folks in the medical industry. Is that right?
Yeah. So from there, I was dealing with the Canadian Medical Association. So what they do is they offer a number of services to doctors as part of being part of the association itself in Canada. One of those is the financial planning and estate planning side of things. So I had the kind of the privilege and the joy of getting to meet some incredible clients that were either in private practice themselves, or they were part of a hospital system. And of course, that's a little bit different in Canada than it is here, but it was a very, very interesting experience to see the ways that they were dealing with things that is somewhat different than some of the other industries I was dealing with at the tax location. That was a little bit more general business. So it was interesting to see the differences and talk about some of those similarities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you go from the frigid north of Calgary, Canada, to Australia. What took you to Australia?
Oil and gas took me to Australia. My husband is in the oil and gas field, and he had a colleague who one night on her going away party, she was headed to Australia, said, "Would you guys ever live in Australia?" And of course we said, "Well, yeah, who wouldn't? That sounds fantastic." And lo and behold, I think it was like 3 weeks. No, maybe it was 5 weeks later from that conversation, and 3 weeks from when Mike had the interview in Perth, Australia, that we were getting on a plane and taking our 2 little kids and moving to Australia.
Oh my goodness. Where did you move in Australia?
We were in Perth. So that's the farthest west coast in Australia.
Yeah. Awesome. And how was it? Did you love it?
It was fantastic. Yep. We did love it. We did love it. I was, at that point we had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old and a baby on the way. And, their park system and cafe system and just outdoor living kind of philosophy in Perth, which is a city, but is very small town city is how it feels, was fantastic. It was wonderful. We made some really, really good friends there that we're still in touch with today. And Mike still works for that same company here in Houston.
Awesome. Okay. So that makes sense why you then landed in the Houston area, big oil and gas industry there. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's get into your business, what you do, who you serve, all that good stuff. And when did that transition happen? Did you go to Australia and then come back and launch the business, or did you launch it when you were abroad?
I didn't. I launched it when shortly after we lived in Houston, I started kind of dabbling. So at this point, as listeners are listening, I now have 4 children.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so we now have 4 kiddos now. And so when we moved to Texas, our youngest was 8 weeks old.
Oh,
So you can imagine the transition that took to move countries with 4 little ones. But I always knew, I grew up with an entrepreneurial dad. I always knew I wanted to have a company of my own. And so when we got here, I didn't want to be in another situation where in Australia, I had done all of my qualifications to go back into the financial field, and realized if I live in the US and then say we move to Norway or wherever else it could be, I was going to constantly be requalifying everywhere that I went. And so that was a huge impetus to me starting the company so that I could take it with me like a turtle.
That's awesome. All right, let's get into the business and your crush formula. Why don't we lead off with that? What is the crush formula?
Yeah, so the crush formula was born out of a kind of a need for me to be able to describe to my clients what I felt were the 5 pillars of what you need to be profitable in business. So I came up with the formula so that I could keep on top of things for my clients, but that also we could kind of check the boxes and make sure that they were doing all of the areas that were required. So the first part of the crush formula is the core. And that's talking about your mission, your vision, and your values, and making sure that your business operations and your business decision-making is all coming from a place of the life that you want to create in your personal life. And how do we factor that in when we're building our businesses so that we're not accidentally replicating, a 60, 80-hour corporate work week. We're actually doing the alternate and creating the life that we want, and the business is the supporting cast for that.
Love it. I love it. And talk about some of the types of clients that you work with.
Yeah. So currently I work with marketing agencies. I work with lawyers in private practice. I work with quite a few people kind of associated around the real estate world. So brokers and mortgage lenders, realtors themselves, that sort of people. So kind of your service-based business, professional service-based businesses for the most part.
Awesome. Awesome. And what are some of the favorite projects or clients that you've had over the last 4 years?
I think there's been so many. I think just being able to watch somebody come from starting. I had a client, actually, this is probably the best example. So she was a teacher, had been a teacher for years and years, and had decided she wanted to get into real estate and had gotten her real estate license, but hadn't really done anything. She was kind of doing it part-time, right? 1 foot into that teaching job, and then 1 foot sort of tipping into real estate. And she hired me as her coach, and then decided, she called me up. We had a whole plan of how she was going to gradually move herself out of the teaching career into real estate. And she called me up one day and said, well, I quit. So now we really have to do this. And I just thought, okay, let's do it. I love that bravery and that confidence. And then we spent the next 4 months, working together and creating a business for her that she was able to replicate her teaching salary. So it was very cool to be part of that journey and see her just take that leap of faith, because that's sometimes the hardest part, is going all in.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I just, again, I love your phrase, is it a hobby? Is this a real business?
A hobby or a jobby?
Yes, exactly. And you also have a podcast.
I do. Yeah.
Talk about that.
The She Needs Grit podcast. It's an opportunity that I get to kind of share my knowledge and my information with people out in the world that are at that point where they're either building a business or they have built a business and now they're trying to scale and get to the next level. And it's allowed me to both have great conversations with other people building their business, other women that are out there doing it and kind of in the midst of it, in the dirt of it, and also being able to share and add as much value out into the world. Because I know that half the fact for me when I listen to podcasts is that inspiration piece, and that, oh, wow, okay, if they did it, then I could probably do it, right? That piece is so critical. So I love the podcast for that reason, being able to share those pieces of information and those interviews with people so that everybody listening can vision where they could end up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. When did you launch your podcast, Sam?
It was, I think we're about almost 80 episodes in. So October will be the second year. So we're kind of 18 months in.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's fun, right? You get to meet all kinds of amazing people.
It is. And it's such a great icebreaker. When people hear you have a podcast, they really want to talk about that. And even just the concept behind podcasting. And it just opens the door for some fantastic conversations just from that alone.
Yes, exactly. I would agree. Yeah. I've been podcasting for over 10 years now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So I don't even know how many episodes we've done.
No, 9 million and 10 probably.
Exactly. And it looks like you are an advocate for female-focused co-working spaces. Are you part of She Space? Are you a member there in Houston?
I am. I'm a member there, and I'm kind of an active speaker there. I'm also there fairly often, actually, to just do advisor hours. So making sure that all of the other members have access to, it's not just me. There's a whole bunch of different specialties. We have one of the first female-owned bank institutions in Texas. They have a woman that comes in regularly, all that sort of thing, so that people can get access to those team members that you're not necessarily going to hire in-house, but you do need when you're building a business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when did you join She Space?
It's got to be close to 2 years as well, actually. It was a lot I had made that choice a lot actually around the podcast. They have a podcast studio. So when I first started recording, I was doing it all out of the She Space. So it was kind of all lined up at the same time.
Oh, awesome. I love it. I love to see female-focused co-working spaces across the US. I know when I founded Hera Hub, came up with a concept, it was back in 2010 and we launched in 2011. So it's been neat to see how the industry has grown over the last 12 years. Pretty remarkable. That's awesome. Well, Sam, what are one or two things that you're looking forward to in your business this year?
I think I'm going to start. I think the number one thing I'm looking forward to and or possibly dreading is I will be doing some master classes for the rest of the year. There's 6 different master classes that I have scheduled in the calendar. So learning how to do a master class. I feel very confident speaking in person, but this will be the first time I kind of embark on that journey of launching in that way for my She Profit School. So that's the biggest, I think, both challenge, and I'm excited about it as well to see how that goes.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That's awesome. When you work with clients, are you doing some group work? Or are you mostly doing one-on-one coaching?
That's where I'm just kind of right at that transition. So I have the first cohort of Profit School launched at the end of last year. And so those folks are working through that now. And then this will be the subsequent launches. So up until now, I've been doing, for the most part, one-on-one coaching. Although I do, with a networking group that I have, I've also been doing some group coaching with them for the last year and a half. So it kind of is a little bit of both.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I love your branding. Your website is just very engaging. It was fun to flip through your podcasts and see all the amazing people that you've interviewed. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, Sam, what's the best way to do that? Is it through your website? Do you prefer a different channel?
Probably, I would say the website is great, but I would say just go and listen to She Needs Grit. It's on all podcast platforms. And that way you get a really good picture of what I do and what I talk about and who I get the opportunity to speak with. So I think that would be the best place to come find me on the podcast.
Awesome. Okay. And I'll just underline that She Needs Grit is the podcast name, and website is shecollective.biz. Wonderful, Sam, getting to know you, learning a bit about your journey. I really, really appreciate your time.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.